Plenty of obscure RPGs exist out there across the world, so it's hard to find the ones that are actually worth playing. Don't worry, that's what I'm here for. Today I'm back with 10 more super obscure RPG gems that I strongly recommend, so let's begin. Number 10. Shan Yuan Sword, The Gate of Firmament. I covered the 7th game in this Chinese long-running series in the previous episode, so it made sense for me to open this video with this one now. They aren't connected, so it's alright to start with either. Set in ancient China during a war where small villages are being destroyed by bandits, you play as Yu, who wants to protect his village instead of just having to relocate to a different place every time bandits attack. His childhood friend gets kidnapped one day, so he sets about rescuing her, meeting a mysterious and powerful woman who can't speak, who was also kidnapped. A pact is established between both without knowing, and the story goes epic from there. This is a beautifully looking game originally released for Windows. Sadly, its console ports on PS4 and Xbox One suffer from frame rate issues and lag in some areas, just like Shan Yuan Sword 7. It shouldn't be a problem since it doesn't get in the way and most of the game exploration and combat seem fine. It's a very traditional RPG, but with a twist in battle. You can see the enemies around while exploring. Upon making contact, well, this happens. You can't move your character. He will carefully move on his own while you just press any of the action buttons. 2 are for attacking, 2 are for using healing items. You can alter this configuration in the menu if you want to, so you just click those buttons and the character executes the attacks by himself. He will also have allies and you can play as them, but the controls are the same, since all you do is press one button per action. What I mean is that, as you can see, all action buttons share the same waiting bar, so you can only execute one action at a time and wait for the cooldown to end to use another one. Doesn't sound like much, but honestly, it's so much fun! Every time you level up, you acquire skill points you can use to unlock abilities, including passive, and obviously you've got your equipment system for each part of your body. This is a really good game. I'm glad the series is slowly starting to come overseas after staying exclusive to China for a very long time. Number 9. Solvars. Solvars is an indie turn-based RPG developed by Genolab with the help of famous company Success. And if you know that company, then you know very well this game is tough as nails, but also a grindfest. Yep, same developers as Rondo of Swords and Operation Darkness. Solvars was released for phones first, then ported to modern consoles. The narrative is bare bones here, as it is one of those that slowly lets you know what the story is about as you make progress, but it revolves around a group of agents called the Soul Bearers that fight strange portals appearing in the city, bringing out nothing but monsters and chaos. This game, however, is more about its gameplay. You'll be traversing different areas, especially streets, in a screen system, which means you can't directly move your character, you can only select the next screen you want him to move to. Sometimes you'll find useful items in chests or some small NPC dialogue. It really is an RPG that shines through its combat. Up to 3 characters join up, each with 1 soul equipped, which is where their strengths and weaknesses come into play. They can equip other souls that unlock abilities and stats, but only one at a time. Every time you want to equip a new one, your stats will go back to basics and you'll have to train that soul again. Characters can also equip 2 different weapons, both allowing the use of certain skills in battle. When you start, you can only use 1 skill of the roulette you see down there, but if you use one of the skills with an arrow pointing up, that means the enemy is weak to it. By using it on your next turn, you'll be able to use 2 or 3 skills, and so on. If the burst bar reaches 100% there, one character can transform into a creature and cause more damage or use a special if you get the special skill in the roulette, cause skills appear at random in here. Oh, and also you can't transform unless your HP is below 40%. Healing is also limited to either the use of SP, items, or the little bird accompanying you, who can either buff your party or heal you, but characters can only use up to 2 or 3 items per battle depending on what you have equipped. And finally, you don't level up the normal way. Instead, like I said before, your soul equipped thus, and can unlock abilities by using soul points you get after battle. So as you see, there's a crap ton of penalties in this game to make it stupidly hard, but since the pixel art is awesome, the soundtrack is amazing and the combat is very addictive, it's worth putting all the effort into it. Number 8. Champions of No Wrath. Dark Alliance made a commercial success across platforms like the PlayStation 2 for example. Snowblind Studios made it, and they also decided to create a new IP within the popular EverQuest universe, Champions of No Wrath. Released in February 10 of 2004 in North America and June 25 in Europe, the point was to compete in the online multiplayer market, as well as offer gamers an offline player mode with couch co-op. Using the same engine as Dark Alliance, Champions puts you in the shoes of a customizable character. No matter the race you choose, there's a war between the elves and the orcs allied with the goblins, so your objective will be to participate in this war and eventually influence it. However, it's a game that derives little from its storytelling, unlike character-focused RPGs. Gameplay is like in many Western RPGs of this era, top-down view with hack-and-slash combat, going around defeating enemies, sometimes small hordes of them, encountering treasures, etc. In fact, the gameplay style is so traditional that it became a comparison point as an evolution of old computer RPGs. So if you play this game by yourself, you might still find a good time, but it really is an action RPG that shines through its multiplayer capacities online or offline. Actually, it did alright in sales, and a sequel was released the following year. Number 7. Mystery Chronicle One-Way Heroics. No one's gonna play this game for its story, but the gameplay? Be warned, cause it can get really addictive. It's a dumbass roguelike RPG, but with a really interesting twist. So like in roguelike games, you'll explore randomly generated areas, but moving means using one turn, and if you move the enemy moves, you know the drill. But you see, you have to constantly decide if you're gonna get that item or fight that monster, or keep moving to the right. The left side of the screen is always gonna move towards you, and if it catches you, it'll be game over. You may be thinking that fighting enemies is gonna consume a lot of time, right? Well, regular foes don't take too much to die, especially if you are smart and calculating enough to get decent equipment you find around or that you bought in stores. Stores come across every so often in small places where you can also rest. Boss fights, however, are a different story, but that's the whole point of this game, to figure out how to defeat them quick enough to avoid getting swallowed up by the screen. Developed by Spike Chunsoft, it includes character classes based on some characters from Danganronpa and Shiren the Wanderer. It's also inspired by an indie game with similar mechanics known as One-Way Heroics, which is why this game has that name as its subtitle. It was released on PS4, PS Vita and Windows. Physical editions exist by Limited Run Games. This RPG is no masterpiece, but it's a really fun game to pick up and play on the go for a good time. Number 6. Wargroove. Wargroove is an indie game inspired by 3 classic series, Fire Emblem, Land Greaser, and especially Advance Wars. Developed by British studio Chucklefish with local and online multiplayer features included. You play in a campaign by Queen Mercia driven away from her kingdom after her father, the king, is murdered, so she'll go around to gather allies and eventually counter-invade her kingdom to take it back. Like many indie games, it's got beautiful 2D pixel art and a simple interface for the graphics. The gameplay progresses through a non-linear map that eventually will let you fight the missions you want in any order. Each mission can only have one commander that fights by themselves, but of course you start with a few generic units to aid you in battle. Additional units can also be summoned with money that you get after every player turn, but they are always summoned from your main base or bases, not the extra ones that you capture across the maps. These are used only to reinforce your units since their HP depends on their numbers. It's usually 4 units per platoon. Battles are played in turns with characters moving on grids. But here, whoever attacks first gets a major advantage, especially if that unit is strong against the other. There is no limit to how many units you can summon as long as you have enough money. Commanders are usually very powerful, almost broken, but there's only one per battle, and it's usually scripted, as in you can't choose which one you'll play as. The game does it for you according to the narrative. Nobody levels up here, not even the commanders, you just have to defeat the enemy boss and the battle will end with no rewards whatsoever. Which is exactly why I said it's more on the Advance Wars side of things, which also means this isn't really an RPG, it's merely a strategy game. I only included it in this video and on number 7, just like with another game in the previous video, to talk about it, because when the hell am I gonna cover it again? It took me years to do so. Anyway, it's a very good tactical game, so definitely check it out on PS4, Switch, Xbox One or Windows. Apparently a sequel will be released this year. Number 5, Relayer. Developed by the same studio in Kadokawa Games that did God Wars, it's a strategy RPG on PS4, PS5 and Windows. Terra is trying to get her sister back to the good side while she struggles with her missing memories. Upon joining a neutral organization in the middle of a war between humanity and an alien race that controls powerful mechs, well, Terra and her allies can also control some of these mechs, so that's how they'll be fighting in grid-based maps across the stars, ruins or different space bases. Heavily inspired by the Super Robot Tyson series, you'll control a group of characters in their mechs, some specializing in close combat, while others in range attacks. These awesome animations when a battle occurs can be skipped if you want to. There is a job system here, but everyone will mostly evolve into a better version of their class. Still, when you choose a different job, you will unlock a brand new skill tree, using points acquired in battle to unlock abilities or even stats. In this base, you can also watch some extra dialogue between people, but it doesn't occur too often. It's a linear, story-driven game after all, so it may have a few scenes on the heavy reading side of things, but it rarely goes overboard. This is a slow game for sure, but it's one of those that keep getting better the more you advance. Definitely check it out. Number 4, Crimson Gem Saga. This Korean RPG is actually Astonisha Story 2. The first one, also on PSP, met a poor commercial and critical reception, so when Atlus localized it, they changed the name so it wouldn't be instantly associated with it, but also because it plays very differently and the story is brand new, barely connected to the other one. The mighty Crimson Gem is being sought after by many, including Killian, the protagonist. He just graduated from a Knight Academy and has no interest in the gem, but thanks to a fateful meeting with Spinel, he ends up joining in her quest to find the gem. Now, developer Ironos was a small studio, so this may look and feel like a low-budget game, but it's still quite good. Although if I can give you a friendly warning, it's a very tough game with tons of grinding involved. Gameplay-wise, it's very simple. You explore the overworld and different areas with visible monsters around. Combat is turn-based, with all your characters on the right side of the screen. Everyone has an HP and MP bar, so of course there are regular attacks, skills and magic spells. But also, there are combination moves, usually between two characters combining their powers to execute a special skill, but also one between the whole party that works as a big buff. And like in many JRPGs in existence, enemies are strong and weak against certain skills and magic spells. Finally, learning points from battle will also allow you to unlock those skills and spells, but also the team attacks that I mentioned. This is a great game from a series that died too soon. It's on PSP, but also on iOS. Number 3, Namco X Capcom. Strategy RPGs has always been a subgenre not very well accepted by most RPG fans, so publishers struggle finding legit reasons to localize them. One very iconic and legendary game that stayed in Japan is the outcome of those corporate insecurities. A massive crossover that had no real reason to stay secluded in its country of origin, other than being a tactical RPG, Namco X Capcom. Developed by Monolith Soft, the company Tetsuya Takahashi had created after leaving Square, and yes, it invited several playable characters from many Capcom and Namco series. Years later, we will get its sequels known as Project Cross Zone 1 and 2 on the Nintendo 3DS, but their masterful predecessor never made it. Leading the many characters in this game are Reiji and Xiaomu, two agents of Shinra, an organization in charge of investigating supernatural events. One such event, is the sudden appearance of interdimensional doors that are kidnapping characters from different universes. So by joining forces with all of them, Reiji and Xiaomu will try to find the cause, defeat the guilty parties of this, and help everyone return to their worlds. You know, many will attribute its Japanese exclusivity to the fact that the game featured a lot of characters that were only known over there. Anyway, characters work in pairs here. You can move the leader around the grid-based maps and approach your enemies to attack. Upon contact, this 2D battle screen will pop up and you'll have to execute combos attached to each action button. Special attacks can also be played out. However, every action is bound by ability points, so the more you have when attacking, the more combos you can unleash. Only way to recover AP is by spending a turn doing nothing or moving as less as you can. During the enemy's turn, you can either use AP to counter or just defend and take little damage. It's a good way to prevent time from being wasted with enemy animations. Maps are long, I have to warn, they can sometimes take up to over an hour to complete. It's also a game with no side quests, and despite that, it's extremely long. It took me over 70 hours to complete. Back in the PS2 era, that was a hell of a lot of time, man. But it was so worth it. It's been fan translated for a while, so anybody can download a ROM and play it. I strongly recommend it as a die-hard fan of the series. It's such a shame that publishers decided against the localization for reasons I believe incomprehensible. Number 2, Redemption Reapers. Yes, this game again, cause I'm in love with it! A grid-based strategy RPG from the minds of the writers of Resident Evil and Metal Gear Solid. You control Sarah and her mates from a small group of mercenaries. They're trying to unify forces with the army in order to destroy the Mord, a violent race that wants to destroy humanity. It's a dark fantasy setting with gritty atmosphere, blood, and some gore. Like many games of its kind, you'll have a base of operations controlled by menu. This is where you'll use extra experience points, repair broken weapons, craft new weapons or upgrade them, use skill points, etc. Missions are masterfully designed to entertain your strategic knowledge. The game is challenging, but it's quite balanced, nothing convoluted or difficult. You'll control the mercenaries, each with their own regular attacks and abilities, but by positioning them nearby, they can execute follow-up attacks to whatever enemy they're focusing on. However, you need to quickly press their assigned button for this extra attack to work. I love this combat since it's simple yet engaging at the same time. I'm baffled this game got a teen rating in North America, considering it was a PG-16 in Europe and a D in Japan, D being the mature rating there. Oh well, that just means it may sell more, appealing to a bigger audience. Definitely check it out, it's on PS4, PS5, Switch and Windows. Number 1. Cosmic Star Heroine. Developed by Zeboid Games, this is a turn-based RPG in a sci-fi setting. You play as Alisa, a special agent investigating the activities of a terrorist group known as Astrea. She and her team will get sent to different places, including labs and ruins, to perform their research. It's a story with a lot of attitude and personality, so expect it to be and sound cool almost in a cheesy sense. That's because it doesn't take itself seriously when it doesn't need to. The writing is superb here. Now, gameplay is classic, as in you have a base of operations you'll return to after every mission, talking to your allies, buying stuff, etc. No random encounters are there, but most battles are hard to avoid. It's okay since the combat, along with its excellent soundtrack, are the true stars here. Up to 4 party members can participate in battle, each with their own set of skills. However, these skills can only be used once and their roster is treated randomly. Remember Solvars? Well, this one predates it, but it's a bit like that. You'll have to adapt each character to what they get and decide which skill is best to use at what moment and situation. You can guard to recharge abilities, so it's not like you'll run out of them if you use them all, and obviously these skills can be equipped in the menu and interchanged with others at any time. I love it because it creates such an addictive combat that isn't restrained to regular attacks and skills. It's so fun to take advantage of the variety of things you can do during every single battle. So accompanied by god-tier music like I mentioned, and beautiful graphics including its lovely pixel art, This indie RPG is a masterpiece. It's on Steam, PS4, Switch, PS Vita, and even Google freaking Stadia! So those are 10 more super obscure RPGMs that I personally recommend. Of course, there might be more in the future. In the meantime, thank you for watching and see you next time!